Teams are, of course, free to add anything they want to within the scope of the rules, of course, and you will see a claw mechanism that is holding on to what I believe is either a temperature probe or the communication lines. They are starting the mission. And that ROV is moving with a mission, heading towards the tunnel. It appears as well, or possibly towards the volcanic vent if that is a thermal probe. When talking in an interview before this competition, the team mentioned that their strategy consisted of trying to do the closer missions first and then moving on to the farther away missions as they have time. It's all part of the engineering design process. Take care of that low-hanging fruit first and move on to the trickier tasks later or as resources allow. They have measuring the temperature, waiting for data from that thermal probe to come back. Looks like we had some lighting changes here, may not have reset those emergency lights, but we should be good now as well. And the thermal probe has been placed in the volcanic vent, trying to get as accurate a reading as possible. We should know that information, and we will see the score representative of the reading show up here in the lower right-hand corner when it has been declared. A total of 50 points are available on that task. Those points are making up the difference between the actual and measured temperature in degrees Celsius. Seeming satisfied with what they have measured, they're heading back towards their tether operator. The tether operator is going to remove that thermal probe as well and equip the robot for its next mission. Looks like we have 30 points on the board for the Typewriter Repairmen. Another important component to their strategy is that tether cable itself. Not only does it contain the power and communication lines, but it also is made up of a flexible foam tubing material that will help the ROV tether stay buoyant to hopefully avoid some of those pesky tangles that we have seen throughout this competition. The ROV is navigating towards the tunnel, it appears, in the depths of the Pacific Ocean. Looking to turn on those emergency lights, deliver the communication hardline as well. Quite possibly they are going for that light lever. Looks like they are correctly turning on the lights as well. Getting ready to open the reactor room door. Pressing the program sequence of buttons. That light turning on means they have correctly pressed the button all the way. So they have number 3, 1, and going for 2. Once the correct combo is entered, the reactor room door will open. And I see the final light turning on from our end here. And out they head. The reactor room door now opening ever so slowly. Of course, we have plenty of security measures in place to make sure not just any unqualified ROV can make it into the reactor room, hence the 4-digit passcode. 95 points on the board for your Typewriter Repairman. Going through that open reactor room door. They have a slightly different end effector from the previous team, and you'll notice that those fuel rods are in slightly different locations as well. We have seen ROVs have a challenge grabbing these different fuel rods. They're opening their gripper to hopefully get a little bit more real estate. We have about 14 minutes remaining, and they have a fuel rod. Their job now is to return that out of the reactor room, which is the direction they're heading in now, and take it to the lead case down at the bottom of the cavern. In industry, fuel rods that have been depleted, or general nuclear waste, is stored in both lead-lined and cement-lined containers. Eagle-eyed viewers, of course, can see that when driving past the Palo Verde generating station here in Arizona. But in many different places, engineers have worked hard to make sure that those spent fuel rods do not pose a risk to people or the environment. We're at 115 points, gaining those points for rescuing the fuel rods from the reactor itself. Each fuel rod removed is 20 points. And for each fuel rod placed in the container, that is 25 points as long as the lid is also closed. Those points will build upon themselves the more fuel rods that get placed in, and the container as well can be toted to the surface. Looks like the ROV is trying to clear itself possibly of the fuel rod or approach from a different angle. Looks like they have cleared themselves of the fuel rod, opting to instead go for another mission, possibly removing another fuel rod as well. Part of the game design this year, looking at both geothermal and nuclear energy as energy sources with fewer emissions. Now, a good chunk of the energy in the Phoenix metro area is provided by that Palo Verde generating station. Across the western U.S., you'll see things like hydro, solar, especially here in Arizona, and wind as different renewable energy sources. Things like geothermal up in the northwest, especially around the Yellowstone area. We have another fuel rod rescued by the ROV. Another 20 points for that team. Looking at 135 for the mission so far, with about 10 minutes remaining. Now, the points you see on screen are just the mission scores, but through the course of this weekend, these teams have prepared presentations, videos, and technical reports that have been given to our judges. So this is only a very small piece of the points pie here, with 550 points being available from the mission and 850 total when taking into account the other components. So a team could perform better in the mission, but still not better overall, depending on their performance in those presentation and video elements. About halfway through their mission time, for every minute they go over, it is 20 penalty points. And given that time limit, the Typewriter Repairmen have opted to go for another mission. They're currently looking at that flag, trying to estimate the distance possibly. Oh, and they have moved the flag. I hate to break it to you, but moving the distance points will not change the measurement you'll be graded against. Team appears to be clearing themselves of the tether a little to make sure that they can move forward unimpeded, possibly heading back to their tether operator or to the tunnel as well. Some of their next possible tasks could be rescuing the fish. As we see those fish swimming around the ocean, they are also looking at the distance from the flags. About 8 minutes remaining in the run here, as there are 135 points on the board for the Typewriter Repairmen. Those fish that are in the water are to be recovered for sampling. As you notice, there's a nuclear reactor down there. We want to make sure that that radiation is not being sent into the environment and affecting the wildlife. Looks like they may be looking towards the tunnel as well, trying to measure that distance if they can. Returning back towards the edge of the water here. Possibly clearing their tether as well. Many of these ROVs are equipped with lights to help them find their way back home as we see them being rescued out of the water. 7 minutes remaining in the mission. They're being equipped with what looks like a fish catching net there. For every fish recovered to the surface, the team will get 25 points. They may also, it looks like they are also working to reposition camera as well to see what is going into that net. Make sure that they have secured their catch before returning to the surface. You'll see teams using different attachments, like the Typewriter Repairmen are, to accomplish different tasks. As we see one of the fish swimming carefully around, getting ready for the catch. They are lining up their net towards the fish. Oh, it's caught on the claw. Will we see a catch here? We might have one. As long as it stays in the net, can return to the surface. We should be clear, but I still see the glow of the fish. Now, of course, a glowing fish is never quite a good sign when you're shopping for fish, but it will help provide great analysis to our scientists on the surface. That will be, if the fish is successfully recovered, another 25 points for the Typewriter Repairmen. The ROV is ready for another, possibly deadliest of all catches here. With about 4 minutes to go, there is an additional time bonus if they don't use their complete time. This is where pros and cons, of course, must be weighed as the trade-offs between the bonus points for time and what points can be scored during a mission. Typewriter Repairmen are making that decision themselves, deciding to take off the netting attachment and opt for another mission. Their claw mechanism that you see on the robot uses just one lead screw to help bring it in and out. This is simplifying what can be really complex mechanisms with a gripper claw. The more degrees of freedom, the more complexity. What you see there is the device that the previous team delivered as well. They have 2 minutes on the clock from activating the device before it detonates. Looking to have a controlled blast to rescue the researchers trapped below the surface. They are arming the device now. That red light means it is armed, ready to go. There is additional weight on that device, which can make it more challenging for the ROV to maneuver across the water. As we see them sinking down, but carefully aiming for the entrance to the tunnel, trying not to get caught up on the door as well. Making their way towards the trapped researchers. They have to drop the device near that circular door that you see here now on screen, and then back away to a safe distance. The device has been placed, trying to right the device and back away in time before it detonates. Making their way out of the tunnel as much as they can. Two minutes remaining in their mission time. There are other missions components unlocked by the detonation of that device. Not sure that that team will have time to complete those components. However, it'll be exciting to see what debris could fall into the water. Looks like the ROV is returning towards home base. We're keeping an eye on the device here as the ROV is pulled out of the water and gotten ready to place another communication tether towards the scientists on board here. Of course, the device has not detonated yet. So the ROV is carefully avoiding that area. There's the flash. They're waiting for the door to open to place the communication line inside. Sometimes blasts can take a while to take effect. There may be a chain reaction of sorts, as we saw in this situation. Lots of debris here, and the communication line has been delivered, taking a shortcut there through the tunnel to the divers. Oh, it looks like they might be caught on the communication line, trying to clear their way out of it. Once again, all the operator of the ROV can see is what is through their own camera. They're not allowed to look into the water behind them. And they do not get to see the view that the audience can see right now, meaning untangling yourself from something like the communications line could be very, very difficult. Now, of course, I don't want to provide any hints that might provide them an unfair advantage, of course. Looks like they're trying to clear some of the debris out of the tunnel and right themselves. Looking at 250 points, our highest score so far of the 2 runs. A piece of debris is considered to be removed if it has been pushed away from the tunnel opening and out of the demolition zone, noted by those PVC pipes on the pool floor. We see that they are now clear of that area, the ROV returning to home base as their timer is still counting down. Carefully making their way back home. Trying to clear their tether, which has been caught on the wall there of the cavern. Now, a rescue could cost 20 penalty points, but it is also 20 points per minute above the time limit. You see the overtime counter there. They're almost back to home base here as we near the NURC sign and get rescued from the pool and end their mission. We're going to allow them some time to pick up from their very exciting mission we saw here on the field. We're going to watch some content, and then we will hand it over to an interview.
Thank you very much. We're now here with Linus from the Typewriter Repairmen. Linus, good job on the run today. First question I have for you, what was your team's strategy going into this run?
Our team's general strategy is we assess what objectives are worth a fair amount of points and which ones are close and easy to do in a sequence. So our first goal is to just beeline to whatever's close, get it done with. If we need to swap something, come back, then go to the next thing. And we did that pretty much as we planned.
Nice. And we noticed that towards the end, when your team delivered the communication line to the team in the cavern, that was close towards the end of the time limit. What was your thoughts on if you had timed that out or if you knew that that was going to be executed at that time?
We ended up taking too long on the fuel rods, and we kind of just decided we were going to try to rush and just get everything done as soon as we could at the end. And I think we managed to successfully complete pretty much every objective we set out for ourselves. There were a few that were a little iffy, but overall I'm happy with our performance.
That's great to hear that you're happy with the performance. And any other remarks you'd like to make about your team or the competition in general?
Basically, the Typewriter Repairmen, we've been doing NURC for a long time. We are currently developing and distributing a kit robot, and our goal is pretty much to just try to help grow this competition and allow more teams to come and compete with us.
Indeed, and we saw earlier that your team has been working on the kits that other teams could compete with here this evening. So we're completed our discussion with Linus. Thanks for watching, and we'll send it back to the pool deck in preparation for the next run. Thank you.